And like I said earlier, you can install the front main seal when the oil pan is installed, or you can do it while it's off on the workbench. If you're not replacing the oil pan, at least replace the front main seal. So here's the front main seal. We're just gonna slide it in. This is a genuine coil. It says coil right there. Make sure it goes in evenly. Might need to add a little bit of oil to kind of help it in. Flush in there, you can see right there, nice and flush. Just make sure it's nicely fully seated in. Right here is the oil pressure sending unit. This is the oil filter. There's a little ring right here, and that's where that O-ring goes that I told you guys about. You want to install that O-ring first, and then you'll go ahead and install the plate on it. I'm just going to add a little bit of oil just to kind of hold it in there, just so that the O-ring doesn't fall out. I already went ahead and cleaned the sealing surface, but I'll go ahead and wipe it down one more time. And after that, we'll go ahead and put some black RTV on the oil pump, and then we'll slide that onto here. I have the new oil pump, all RTV up. I like using black RTV, it's just one of my favorite. We'll go ahead and put this in. Let me go ahead and add a little bit of oil onto the front main seal, just so that it kind of helps slides in there. There is a ring right here. You kind of have to adjust this so that that lines up with the crank. There it goes. All good in there. I'm just going to get the mallet and tap it in. Alright, everything's in place. You want to go ahead and just tighten this up. I'm not going to show you guys how to do it, but there's multiple bolts. I like to have my old oil pan and I put the bolts back into the old one. And then we'll just go ahead and screw them in. There's one. These are all 12 mil. And then there's some other bolts on the oil pan. These are all the accessory bolts. Make sure you reuse these bolts when you install like the cover and all that stuff. The next thing we have is the oil pickup tube. On the 3.4, when you do the swap, you use the 3.0 pickup tube. But then you see how there's two legs, 1, 2. You cut the legs that go with this route. And then we also have to remove this bolt right here because that's where it mounts to. You have one bolt that goes right here to the oil. And then you have two nuts that goes right here on the oil pan or the oil pit pump. Oil pickup is done. Now we're going to go ahead and install the oil pan. We can use the 3.0 oil pan. Make sure your surface is nice and clean. We went ahead and cleaned already. I'll go ahead and do one more wipe down. Something real quick, when I got done installing it, I noticed that the front main seal, there was a little kink. It was like the lip was pushing out a little bit. So I didn't want to risk it. I went ahead and took it out, and we're going to go ahead and go buy a new one. So I think it's best from now on to install the oil pan first and then put the front main seal so that you can see that it slides in nicely into the crank. This is what I love about having spare parts, and when you hoard spare parts, I look into my parts bin and I'm like, man, I remember I have a front main seal for a 3.0 that I never used. Come to find out, 3VZE, they're the same part number. So the 3.0, 3.4, they use the same part number, 90311 422. The only difference is this one is kind of light brown, whereas the other one was black. So we're going to go ahead and put some oil this time and make sure that it's nicely installed. Or oil pump, so that means that we're seated in. Alright, so it's all good now, guys. Look at that, sweet. Toyota, team no leak. If you guys know anything about me, I don't like a leaky engine. So we put a good amount of RTV. And again, you have to use the 3.0 oil pan. If you're solid axle or 22RE, do your own research. You might have to use something else. There's two studs in the block, so you just have to guide it up with that. And we'll let it sit here for a bit. I also need to mention that when you're done putting this engine back, don't add oil until this engine is in your engine bay, alright guys? Last time I was in a rush and I added oil and I forgot that I have to remove the rear main seal because we're going to go ahead and replace the rear main seal as well. So technically you could add oil after you're done installing the rear main seal, but just wait till you get this engine into the car, into the truck, and then you can go ahead and do that. While I have this engine upside down, we're gonna go ahead and remove this oil drain hole right here, and we're gonna put a new gasket just because we're at it. So it's all good to put a new gasket. We're gonna tighten this up, and then we don't need to remove this anymore. I'm gonna recommend my customer here to change his oil after 500 miles, because after 500 miles, it will clean the engine up. And also he'll be done with his break-in for his clutch. We'll go ahead and let this thing cure overnight. We don't need to do anything to it right now, but right now we can go ahead and flip the engine back upwards. This engine's gonna start getting heavier and heavier because we're gonna start adding a lot of stuff to it. The next thing we're gonna do is install the water pump, and then after that we're gonna wait for everything, and we're gonna start installing the heads first before we go ahead and install all the timing belt stuff. Time for the water pump. A little quick brake cleaner. Just make sure it's nice and clean again. With our new Ace timing kit, it comes with a gasket already, and you don't need to put RTV for this kind. If you don't have a gasket, then you can use RTV, but I like to avoid the RTV because the RTV gets super messy. So that goes in there like that. Went ahead and did the oil cooler delete, so this right here gets blocked off. This is a coolant line that goes to the oil cooler originally. So it goes in just like that. And I'll go ahead and stitch this down. I have the water pump installed. Keep in mind that the water pump timing kit, it comes with the thermostat gasket, but it does not come with the new thermostat. So you have the thermostat, there's a little jiggle valve. The jiggle valve faces 6 o'clock or downward, according to the factory service manual. So I'm just gonna point it about right here. And then this piece can go on. I am missing one bolt right here, so I don't know why I don't have it. I'll have to double check. But then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'm missing one right here, so I'll go find an extra one. I'm gonna install this piece here. This piece is the timing belt tensioner. There's a bolt that goes in, and then there's a washer that sits in the back of it, so don't forget that. You can do it in any order you want, guys. If you guys wanted to do the heads first and then this last, but you just gotta make sure you don't do one part where, oh, I have to remove this part to install that part. So I'm pretty sure I'm doing everything correct. Obviously we're not gonna install the, well, we could install the timing belt tensioner. We just gotta make sure we don't pull that plug. So there's a grenade plug, we call it. So this one gets tight, and that washer prevents, that washer helps this move back and forth. If you didn't have that washer, it will just hold this in piece, and this needs to move back and forth. This is what tension your timing belt. This right here is the timing belt tensioner. Next thing we're gonna install is the main crank stuff. We have the crank gear. It's very important for you to check all these tooth and make sure they are not damaged or broken. If they are damaged or broken by any means, you might run into an issue where it's gonna have an issue reading it or anything like that as far as the sensor. These tooth are what the little the crank sensor reads. I'm gonna take it to the brass wire wheel and just go ahead and brass wire wheel all this grease off real quick. But this goes in, that goes in, and it only goes one way because it's key right now. It's key with the crank. So that goes in. I'm just gonna add a little oil right here on the crank, just so that this will slide in smoothly. Also prevents any rusting as well. So we're gonna install this, and we're gonna be pretty much done. I'm gonna install this, and we'll go ahead and install the crank sensor, which is held by a 10 mil right here as well. The crank sensor goes like that, and this is what it reads on the teeth. So this will go in like that. So that just sits there, and we can't install anything else until we put the timing belt on. So we'll go ahead and move on to the head right now. And we can also go ahead and put that sensor in first right here. Make sure that sensor is nice and clean. It would have been easier to install this crank sensor before installing this piece, so you can have it drilled, but it's all good. You still have room in there to stitch it up. Before I install the head, I'm gonna install this coolant line. This is the coolant line that sits between the two heads. It's held by two 10 mil. It's supposed to have an O-ring right there, but we're gonna go ahead and use RTV. RTV is totally fine. I've done it in the past. So really easy to install. It's held by two bolts on this end, and then one nut right here that goes into the stud. And it will just be much more easier to have install this first, and then we can install the heads. Perfect. Nice and smooth. We're gonna go ahead and hand tight these first. They are kind of tricky to get to be honest, because this bracket here is kind of wraps around it. That's in. Everyone, this is the step where I'm not going to show you guys because this is very time concentrating and you guys should go read the manual book. But I'm going to go ahead and get the heads installed. We have new OEM MLS head gaskets. I went ahead and cleaned it. I'm not going to show you guys how to do it because if you guys are doing it this far, you guys should already know how to do it. So you guys don't need to see me do it. I'm going to clean it. I'm going to blow the air, get a hose air and blow the hose for the bolts. And make sure everything is nice and clean. And then I'm going to go ahead and finish it up. So we're going to install the heads, cam bolts, and then I'll get back to the following step and show you guys the rest. And this is all for entertainment purpose. This isn't a how-to video. One thing I also want to mention is that you want to use some new head bolts. Make sure you put oil and make sure you renew the washer. Don't forget that washer, guys. It's very important. Couple hours later, and after some food, I finally got the two heads bolted in. We have the 2-cylinder heads down. We have the new cam seals installed. We have the cams installed. Everything is lined up properly. Make sure everything is lined up. Make sure everything's torqued in. When I first did the driver head, I went ahead and did a cam, and I forgot to put the valve cups back in. So I went ahead and took out the cams again. So hopefully, it was just a quick brain fart, so don't forget those stuff. So everything's in, everything's good, everything's nicely lubed. We have some nice lube on it, not just oil. We have some nice red sticky oil lube on it, so everything's all good. I'm gonna go ahead and get the knock sensor harness wrapped up, and we're gonna install the knock sensor harness, and that's gonna hang out here for a bit, and then we'll go ahead and install the center intake manifold. And I want to do that now so that stuff doesn't fall into the ports, and then we can just cover it on the top. This right here is the 3.4 knock sensor harness. It's really important that you replace this because if you take your old one out, most likely all these will break, all the tabs will break. It's plastic. I don't know why they put it in that location, but it's a pretty bad idea. Here's the part number for if you guys are interested in getting it. 822-19-34010. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up. This is some cool tape, insulating tape, up to 400 degrees direct heat. So I'm just gonna go ahead and wrap. So far, I love using this tape here. I think I bought this about 3 years ago from AutoZone. I've been searching at AutoZone and I don't see them carry anymore. But if you guys have any recommendation on some kind of protectant tape, let me know in the comment section below. So here it is. It's all wrapped up, nicely covered. Pretty simple to install. Just plug into the two knock sensor. You can't mix it up. They're all shortened and longer. All right, that's what it looks like. It goes into the knock sensor, 1, 2, and then it clips onto this pipe right here. Really nice. And then this just gonna come out and hang out here for a while. This will hang out here for a while, and then it will go into the engine harness. But this is all prepped and ready to go, so we'll just let this one hang out here. Brake cleaner. Go ahead and just clean the surface area. It's pretty clean already, but just give it a quick wipe down. Make sure there's no oil and stuff like that. The gasket we're using is not Toyota, so that's one difference. It's the Felpro, which is all good. They're just as good, or at least they're good in my opinion. At least I used it before. So that's the only thing we're not using. It's crazy because the gasket for the 3.4, they're pretty expensive as well. Especially these two down here that goes into the main cylinder head. Alright, everything's nice and clean. This is the gasket kit that we're using from Felpro. Right there. MS95898. So there's two pieces that goes onto the intake manifold. And there's the circular one. Those are for the lower and the upper intakes. These do go in a particular way, so just make sure you have them going the right way so they'll line up properly. So they're all lined up, Felpro. And then there's two coolant jackets over here, so you can't really mix them up, really directional. So that's what they look like, nice and pretty. Let me go ahead and clean this is the intake. This is what houses the injectors and a few other things. Go ahead and slide it in. You can't really you can't really mess this up. Bolted, torque down. All right, double check's good. Always triple check. They have to go into the dowel, so they have to go in evenly. you go. Boom, we're in, guys. So let me go ahead and torque these down. You guys don't need to see that. You guys should all know how to do that already if you guys are this far. And you can see here, this part here, the knock sensor, it just gets crushed down here. It's not getting crushed, but there's room for it, so it just sits like this right here. So the main plenum's hooked up. I'm gonna go ahead and install the upper coolant tube. It goes right here. It uses a triangle, a gasket. It uses this gasket right there that's like triangle. If you don't have it, you can just use RTV. I'm sure it's fine. I did it on my last swap, but this time I went ahead and bought one. I should have bought some more. Here's the part number for this gasket. 16341624040. It's a metal gasket, so it's not like anything. So it's a typical metal gasket, which is really nice. It goes in one particular way only, so you can't mix. You can't mess it up. And it's held by three 10 mil nuts. Next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and install the injectors. Put the injectors in the injector rails, the upper intake, or I might not do it yet because I don't have my wire harness yet. I like to install everything, at least the upper, once the wire harness is in, just so that it's nicely complete. And then also you can see my two heads are still open. I need to go prep the valve covers again. I degreased it and pressure washed it the other day, but I'm gonna go ahead and wash it again, and then I need to prep those valve cover, put the spark plug tubes, install the spark plug tubes into the valve cover, and then we'll go ahead and install the valve cover so that will be protected. So for now, I'm just gonna go ahead and jump into the injector. This piece right here goes back to right here. It goes like that right there. Yeah, it just hangs out right here. It doesn't really do nothing, so I always just leave it like that. Hello everyone, it's a new day. I didn't film the rest of it, but I already went and installed most of the engine stuff. Went ahead and installed the injector, the fuel rails. We went ahead and installed the timing belt, fresh new timing belt, new seals, new fan brackets. Went ahead and installed the alternator bracket. I went ahead and also installed the exhaust manifold. I did the driver's side already, did the dipstick already. So the whole driver's side is complete. The only thing I have to do next is install the manifold for the passenger side, and then I still have to clean the valve covers. I haven't got to that yet, so I need to clean the valve covers so I can go ahead and put that on, so we can get the top of the engine head protected from any kind of dirt and stuff like that. But I'll go ahead and show you guys a close-up of the engine. So here's everything, guys. Crank seal, crank sensor, fan bracket new. I'm missing the bolts for these, so I have to go find some in my bolt bin. Everything's all installed, the cover, cam sensor, everything's installed over here. Alternator. We didn't get a new alternator, we went ahead and used the existing one, so it should be good. I'll ask the customer if the customer wants to budget in, we can go ahead and put a new one, so everything's loose right now. The valve cover is not installed yet, like I mentioned. All the injectors are installed already with new seals. I'm not gonna install the plenum yet because I wanna wait till I get the harness, my harness, so I can put the harness in. It'll just be a little bit easier. This is the fuel return line that I told you guys about. We're gonna go ahead and delete this. I'm just keeping this on for now, but this is the one that we have to extend up to about 3 feet that goes onto the driver's side. The 3.4 fuel line is still loose right now, because once I install the intake manifold, I'll go ahead and position which way I want. But originally, this one flips around like to this side, to the driver's side, and you just take it around and flip it to the passenger side, which will connect to the hard line on your truck. We do have new coolant lines. These are new coolant lines, and then it's coolant lines, and all these are all coolant lines. So I'll figure them out later. I'm having a brain fart right now. So that's it right there. Exhaust manifold has been cleaned, wire brush, new gasket, went with the Felpro, oil cooler delete. There's the oil union down there, and then we went with the new dipstick. Here's the part number for the dipstick: 11452626060. It's for this piece right here. You can see how it curves up, and then it bolts into the 10 mils onto the alternator bracket. There's already two 10 mil spots for it already. And then for the dipstick, you have to get the dipstick as well. That right there is the part number for the dipstick: 15301626060. And keep in mind that you need the dipstick piece holder itself, the union, and also an O-ring. There's an O-ring on that end of the dipstick. and I'll show you that O-ring. So this is the O-ring for it. That's the part number right there, 96721191010. Definitely order a couple because they're cheap enough, so definitely have a few spares. So I'm pretty much almost done with this engine. I'm just gonna go ahead and finish the manifold for the passenger, install the engine mount, and then that's pretty much it on this side. I also do have to install the AC compressor because the customer wants AC system. So we're gonna install the 3.4 AC and then also remove the top plate and put the 3.0 AC top plate on it. I made a video about that already, so I'm not gonna show you guys that. So once we do that, we're gonna go ahead and move on to the valve covers. And then after that, once we get the wire harness, I'll finish the rest of it. I still have to clean the throttle body and also put a new IAC, clean the IAC gasket. So here's are the parts. This is the throttle body. It needs to be clean, it needs to be washed. Here's the other new hose for it. This is the new hose for the coolant line, 16261626060, which is this piece right here. We have a new throttle body gasket. That's the part number. And there's a new throttle IAC gasket, 61087. We have new spark plug wires, new coolant hose. We have the flywheel. These are the 3.4 flywheel bolts for the flywheel. We have a new throwout bearing for the 3.0. Valve cover gasket. New PCV valve for the valve cover. These are all the 3 belts, power steering, AC, and alternator. We have a 10,000K resistor. We need to do the tack mod. We are using the original Toyota coil packs. And then the 22RE coolant bottle. This is a 1/4-inch fuel line that we'll be using. And this is the firewall grommet that we'll be using. This is the downstream O2 sensor. And then these are all the exhaust stuffs right here. These are all the stuff for the exhaust nuts, and all the exhaust gasket. These are the exhaust gasket for the crossover and the downpipe. You need about 4 of these guys, so definitely order a couple more. So 90917066065, and then I bought some exhaust hangers because we're going to be modifying the exhaust system or putting in a new exhaust system. So that's pretty much it. This is all the 3.4 stuff that we need. And then we have the valve cover, we have the gun box, the intake manifold, this right here, oil, ACE hubs, and then the AC down there, that's the 3.0 stuff. I still have to mount the power steering. I'll go ahead and do that a little bit later on. And then we also have the 3.4 AC system. We'll go ahead and check that out. That's from John. And then these are all the 80 series. This is the Land Cruiser that has a blown head. We're doing overhaul, so we're not going to touch any of this. This is just 80 series stuff. So we're almost done here, guys. We're almost done clearing up my garage. Once I'm done with this engine, I'm going to clean it up, and then we're going to transfer all the 80 stuff and start working on the 80 in the meanwhile, while we're waiting for other parts or for the harness and the crossover for the 3.0, the 3/4 swap. So that's pretty much it. And then these are all the 3.4 stuff, the air box, the EVAP box, the downpipe. And again, I'm gonna go through all this. These are all just regular 3.0 parts and some random parts I got. Most of this is going to the junkyard or the landfill soon. So that's pretty much it for today's vlog. I hope you guys enjoy. I'm not gonna show you guys the rest of it because the rest of it's pretty much self-explanatory. Our next video will be once I get this thing installed and once I get the wire harness, I'll show you guys another full walkthrough of the full engine. And then after that, we'll go ahead and once we're ready to drop this engine, we still have to drop it off the engine stand, put a new rear main seal, and then also install the clutch and all that fun stuff. So we still have the clutch kit right here. And then we also have the customer's battery. Customer said his battery's still good, so I'm just keeping it on a trickle charger for now. So I hope you guys enjoyed this series. I'll catch you guys on the next video. Much love. Talk to you guys then.